Most men think that testosterone is built in the gym. It's mostly produced at night. So my client, he more than doubled his testosterone in less than 2 months, not by training more or training harder or training differently, although that is useful. He did it by calming his nervous system in the evening and doubling his REM sleep. So when I looked at my client's blood work, there were no glaring obvious weaknesses. His issue wasn't lack of training or lack of discipline or things like that. His issue was lack of sleep, lack of REM sleep, and his nervous system never really calmed down. His cortisol levels were too high at the wrong times of the evening, and his melatonin wasn't high enough at the right times. Constant stimulation, overstimulation, too much cortisol at the wrong times. Around 80% of your testosterone production is going to be produced overnight. So, I mean, you could train perfectly, you can eat perfectly. And if your sleep is lackluster or it's shallow or it's not really good enough, you can stay at 400 and your testosterone this is whilst training and eating perfectly. If your sleep is that bad, this is what happens. And so this is what happened until we optimized his nervous system, ultimately his stress hormones, and then his REM sleep cycles as well. Within days, his sleep data had improved. Within weeks, his testosterone had more than doubled. That's how powerful this stuff is. And it was all from this routine, which is mostly an evening routine, but I'll do the morning as well, which I'm going to get to shortly in this video. So without further ado, let's get straight into the routine. It starts in the morning. This has very little to do with the way you train, unless you are training right before bed, not a good idea. And it has very little to do with your diet plan and your eating. Again, unless you are having a massive meal right before bed, don't do that. Unless you're doing something daft like that, this isn't about training, this isn't about eating, this is about circadian rhythm and nervous system, and we'll get into the details now. So here's the daily routine that my client used to more than double his testosterone. It's geared around circadian rhythm optimization and calming the nervous system and having cortisol spikes in the morning instead of the evening, and your melatonin levels being high enough in the evening so that you can sleep properly and stay asleep. So it starts with the first thing in the morning. You want to wake up at the same time every single day. The consistency matters more than the actual time. You don't want it to be too late, but you want it to be relatively early in the morning, but the consistency is the most important thing. Don't scroll on your phone. So many people, they leave their phone on charge overnight, they immediately grab the phone and start, I do it myself and I'm checking business numbers and stuff, but even that is not good. Or I'd found myself in a habit of doing it. The first light that gets into your eyes, within about half an hour of waking up, it should be natural light, even if it's cloudy. So no sunglasses, not through a window. So this is a room with lots of windows. It doesn't count. You've got to actually get outside. So if you've got a garden or whatever, just go for a walk, get some natural light, even if it's cloudy. At least 15 minutes, 20 minutes. If it's cloudy, if it's really sunny, you can get it in 10 minutes. That is going to set the basis for your circadian rhythm being optimized so that you can sleep properly at night. The next part is that you actually eat breakfast. You're not doing some sort of fasting or extended fasting. Fasting can work for a while, but as you start to get leaner, it starts to become less effective. It starts to become a problem, a hindrance to your circadian rhythm. Your cortisol levels start getting higher and higher. They accumulate over time. You want some sort of breakfast. Eggs are the obvious one. Bacon, avo are also great choices. You want some cholesterol, some micronutrients, some protein. And all of this will control your cortisol, stop it from getting too high from weeks and weeks and months of fasting. And so this is what my client, Brandon, was doing. He was fasting, and we moved him over to eggs and bacon, eggs and avo, eggs and whatever. Eggs was always the foundation. And it did help his circadian rhythm. It helped his stress levels. It helped his cortisol start to come down. Again, this next part is about consistency. So the meal timings were consistent. Nothing too crazy. No long periods where you're not eating. No big gap where you just have little snacks, little unhealthy, weird processed snacks. Consistent meals. Your body knows what to expect. This is a big deal. Whereas if you go long periods without eating, again, it taps into that sort of fight or flight response. Your body thinks it might be dying, it might starve, it might not get its next meal. The body is still very irrational. It's from the caveman times. Um, you want consistency. Now, this next part is huge. It was huge for me. It was huge for Brandon. It's huge for other clients. It's huge for you guys watching this. About 90 minutes, 60 minutes probably isn't enough. About 90 minutes before your target sleep time, you need a wind down period, a cool down period. During this period, no bright overhead lights. Any light has to be dim. You're talking like lamps, um, softer lighting, no blue light on your phone or screens. If you're going to do that, make sure you've got really good blue light blockers on, with the tint. The lighting has to come down. No more work. That's a big one for some of you guys, especially the ambitious ones, and it's a big one for me as well. No more stressful conversations. No more stress-inducing activities. Deep breath work. So that's the basics. Like, no more of the things that can mess up with your cortisol, your circadian rhythm, things like that. Then you move on to breath work. And this can just be 5 minutes of deep breathing. If you don't like meditation or you don't like these apps, or you don't like the thought of it, just focus on breathing deeply for 5 minutes. That's all it takes. Makes a huge difference for the parasympathetic nervous system, the nervous system calming down, knowing that it's thriving and not just merely trying to survive and in fight or flight mode. It's a huge, huge deal, especially in the evening. Another huge point, and I should have said this earlier, is that you want to make sure your blood sugar and or your liver glycogen stores are not going to be getting too low overnight. This is where just eating clean meals consistently each day is half the battle. Some guys, they're up and down, the blood sugar's up and down, and it's very, very difficult to have stable blood sugar overnight if you're not consistent with your diet. But having said that, assuming you are consistent, this is where just having an apple or a banana or some kind of fruit or maybe something with honey can be really, really useful just for topping up glycogen stores, making sure that they're not going to get too low overnight. When they get too low, the cortisol rises, and it's your body way of saying, wake up and go and eat something before we die of starvation. You're not going to die of starvation, but that's the mechanism through which this has all been designed through 20,000 years ago. So make sure that you have some sort of fruit before bed, especially if you've not had loads of potatoes with your dinner or something. Also have some magnesium for the same reason. Cortisol levels, you don't want you don't want the blood sugar to get too low. You don't want your cortisol levels to start spiking at 2 a.m, because that is just impossible to have good REM sleep and then optimal testosterone secretion. So this is everything we did with Brandon. So there was enough carbs, enough magnesium, and no, it's not going to slow down. An apple and a little bit of honey before bed with some magnesium and a tiny bit of protein is not going to stop you from losing fat. If anything, it will improve it. If you're waking up at 2 a.m. and your testosterone levels are lower, your nutrient partitioning is going to be worse. So if anything, this is going to improve your fat loss, generally speaking. And then this is possibly my favorite part of this routine. And again, I'm a weirdo here. No one seems to do this. And I think you're all idiots for not doing it, but no offense. Read a fiction book at least 30 minutes before your goal bedtime. So this is the last part of the routine. A fiction book, not some sort of business book, not some sort of something that's going to keep your analytical, logical brain active. You want to sort of relax. You want to get lost in some story. You don't want to be thinking about work. You don't want to be thinking about money or stress-inducing activities. And there's a lot of these sort of like red pill guys or male self-improvement that seems to have this thing that you never sleep. You work 15 hours a day. Sleeping is weak or something is categorically, biologically, scientifically false. You're not going to have optimal testosterone levels if you don't sleep. You need to sleep. So reading a fiction book before bed is a huge way to just calm the mind down, reduce the activity going on there, and you'll fall asleep far faster. And here's the thing that guys don't intuitively get. You're also more likely to stay asleep. It's not guaranteed, but you are more likely to, especially if you got the morning sunlight. especially morning daylight, even if it's cloudy, and especially if you get your blood sugar is stable and your magnesium stores are topped up and all of these physiological basics. If you add reading on as well and the nervous system's calmed down, again, you're more likely to stay asleep at the 2, 3 a.m. mark where so many of you guys are waking up, and it's ruining your testosterone levels. So it's really important. And so follow in Brandon's footsteps. This is the routine. It works. So please just do it. Don't just skip loads of different parts, but just following your feelings, like I mentioned in the previous video. Just follow the routine completely for at least a week. I guarantee your sleep scores are going to start improving. So we've spoken a little bit about diet and consistency in this video, and a little bit about carb intake and the types of carbs you want to eat in the evening. But I've not really spoken about what are the most powerful foods in general for testosterone. If you're curious about that, I talk about the most powerful type of food, and it's not eggs, in this video here. That is the king of all foods. Eggs would be number 2. Eggs and oysters, arguably. Check out that video, and you'll learn a lot about the testosterone diet, and I'll see you there.